Hi, good evening, everyone. We will be starting the webinar in just a couple of minutes as everybody is queued up. It takes few minutes for all of us to enter the room. So just allow a bit of a time for everybody to come into the room. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for your patience. Some of you have signed in early, and I hope this will be a great session. We allow just few minutes. It would be good if you can just in the chat type in your location, name, location, and school, or as a parent who you represent. It would be good to know your names. Good evening, everyone. I only have to tell you that we have a limit of 1,000 people on this webinar, and we hit that number, but we're just ensuring that all registered selected people are here. Great to see you, Neha ma'am from Ambala. Dr. Fung, Ambala is a very remote, I will not say remote, but very close by to Delhi. It's a very good city, and Army Public School has a good strength there. We actually have trained a lot of teachers in Punjab already, around over, I think 500 plus teachers have been trained in Punjab. So we've hit around 200 now. I will just wait for another 2 to 3 minutes. So just be patient. In 3 minutes, we'll all be live. Just another 2 minutes, okay? We've crossed 200.
No problem.
I don't want anybody to miss the first part.
What time is it over there?
Okay, you're asking me in another country, which I am in. In my country, it's 5:30. It's 5:30 in Jakarta, it's 5:30 in Thailand, and it's 6:30 in Singapore. And it's 4 p.m., 4:03 in India.
Okay.
So people have actually, taken out time for this after they're off office or schools. I think we're good now. We will start because I think we just 1 minute to wait. We've crossed our minimum threshold that we planned very quickly. So that's great. It's also the queuing system. It's not people coming in late. It's just that uh, it takes time to just load up people on the system. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Chandrakant Singh. You can see a shorter version of me, which is a Chinese name, CK. I'm based out of Singapore, and I'm happy to lead this company called LearnX, which has done a significant work in the last 3 to 4 years towards mental health of our children, adolescents, and our teenagers to be in whole. And we've done a lot of training. Some of you have been part of our training modules. You've gone through this. Some of you are first time seeing us live today, working together. But as you know, the topic today, what we brought in is adolescence and the impact of that on social media and the emotional intelligence. All three of them I believe are purely misunderstood or misconceptualized at times. So we're going to try and figure out each of them. Of course, you saw the Netflix series, The Adolescence, which came in. And with that, there was a lot of buzz around it. And a lot of people had their own versions of, understanding what adolescence means. Then there was a big talk about emotional intelligence and how, emotional intelligence can help or transform individuals to build resilience in that social media pressure, because that's what you saw in the Netflix series, right? Everybody was worried about their impressions, their impact in the public, and to be with that, how do we counter it? How does that today impact our livelihood on a day-to-day basis? And how do we make sure that our children are protected and are building that resilience needed to counter this world of huge amount of information, flying in and around. So I have probably the best and most diverse panel you can ever think of, bringing together. And Learnix has always done this in the past, and today it's another example of seeing it. So I'll with no queuing system or no hierarchy, I'll just go from left to right on my panel. So the first on my panel is Dr. Daniel Fung, who's a world leading psychologist and psychiatrist, child psychiatrist as well. And he's based in Singapore. He leads Institute of Mental Health Singapore as the CEO. He has been significantly investing and transforming the mental health space for child. We've been involved from a day one Learnix was founded, and a lot of content that you see has been adopted from his institution and the books that he has written. So welcome, Dr. Daniel Fung. This is a topic I know is also very close to your heart. So I look forward to engaging you. On my right is Jagjit, also a good friend of mine for a school days. Literally, we go back 30 plus years together. But again, he leads today an organization which is Novartis, which is on the global leadership as well as. But he handles the head of capabilities within the company as a vertical. So welcome, Jagjit, on the panel. I look forward to hearing a lot from you while we take this conversation. On my third on the line is Dr. Manish, based out of Jakarta, Indonesia. He heads the academics for Gandhi International Academics, right? If I correctly pronounced it, from Indonesia, and he's been interacting not just with the international students but local, and so he'll bring a much wider perspective to what we can experience within the school system internationally or regionally. You can have the impact. We also have Mr. Anil Kumar, his leading principal, also an educator. I think he keeps saying he's a teacher from his heart and will always remain to be a teacher, a great educator and a leader. He leads the school, which is kind of top 10, or I would say top one in India, DPS Puram. And welcome, Anil sir. I know you're on the way, but
Thank
if you can
you.
just say hi
Thank
to
you.
us, it will be good. Great.
Hello.
That's great.
Thank you. Thanks, Zatan.
Thank you, Anilsa. And so that brings us to the start. So I'll Dr. Danford, I always go to you to start a topic. Why? Because I believe you will put things into logical perspective. A lot of times we're driven by emotions and misinformation because we talk about it, and we do have this conversation pretty loosely taken. Adolescence and so you did see the series, right? You did see the series.
Uh, I watched it from on my Netflix, but I
yeah.
did not really pay attention to all of it because it was fairly intense. And but yeah, I did watch the series.
Correct. So, and what we trying to bring out, because people did realize how impactful social media and the stage for adolescence is. It would be good to really revisit and understand what is adolescence, what is emotional intelligence. I know we keep talking about artificial intelligence, and
Mm.
and that kind of drives the countermeasure that we should prepare ourselves with, right? So I would, if you have something to share, please show to us. But it would be good to understand what is actually emotional intelligence and how then I would probably lead it to the next to the panelist to bring it to a discussion point that how can we use that to impact the life of adolescents today. Okay. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Doctor.
Okay. I hope you can see my slides. I didn't define adolescence here because I didn't think that was the sort of scope. But just as a quick oversight, adolescence, and not the BBC series, but the stage of life, is a very interesting concept actually, and you can write a whole book on it because some people think that there is a defined stage, but if you define it by age, most people will assume it's puberty, physical development, but there is an emotional and cognitive component of it, which seems to suggest that it's moving into adulthood. But then, how is adolescence different from adulthood? So, in some cultures, adolescence is just it's not even a phase. It is, you are a child, and then you go through a ceremony, and then you become an adult. So adolescence is an interesting phase of life really the transition between childhood and adulthood, which means that physically the child has grown up and is like an adult. Emotionally and cognitively, we're not so sure. So with that kind of lack of clarity in mind, we move to this concept of emotional intelligence. Now, this deck of slides, and I know I have about 10 minutes, is really something that I did almost 20 years ago, but it's still pertinent today. So I wanted to talk a little bit about it. First, let's talk about intelligence, right? And here's a long definition, but it's from 52 intelligence researchers in 1994. It's a concept of a very general mental capability that involves the ability to reason, plan, solve problems, think abstractly, or comprehend complex ideas, and learn quickly from experience. So it's not just academics, which is about a specific skill, but it's a broader, deeper capability. So this concept of intelligence, and a lot of people think that it's probably more than one element. So at one stage in the history of intelligence, there was this psychologist named Howard Gardner who started to say, actually, maybe there's this thing called multiple intelligence, which involves musical, ability to body kinesthetic, which means your body smart, so like sportsman, or maybe there's a intersocial, interpersonal element of people smart, or word smart, or logic smart, or nature smart, or cell smart, or picture smart. Whole bunch of multiple intelligences. But in fact, actually, more recent research has actually suggested this is a myth, right? There's really no standard measurement for all these elements, and they are overlapping. So this belief in multiple intelligence really lacks evidence base. So that's historical. But interestingly, for a long time, we've been using tests to test IQ, or the intelligence test. And IQ tests identify individuals who are very capable and individuals who are low functioning. And it's all around the ability to perform academically. So we've used these tests originally, at least in the West, to identify individuals who need special schooling. So it is the lower end of the spectrum that these tests are effective. And these are some of the ranges of an IQ test. Now, I'm here not to talk about IQ, so I'll briefly talk about it because it predicts academic ability. The main purpose of these IQ tests were designed to pick up slow learners, right? And therefore, if you score very high, and a lot of people like to talk about that, it's not necessarily very accurate. That's one point to bear in mind. Actually, in Asia, we've been doing our own versions of IQ tests. In China, it's called the imperial examinations, where they were trying to pick up people who could lead, great civil servants who could help the emperor. And it's an interesting concept. Those tests were trying to pick up the higher end of the spectrum, but nonetheless, Singapore, we've actually adopted some of that principle in trying to identify scholars. So that's testing and intelligence testing. Now, but what is the purpose of IQ? What is the purpose of intelligence, right? And there are many examples here of high IQ people. Howard Gardner, remember he talked about multiple intelligence. In 1999, he wrote this piece. He says, I want my children to understand the world, not just because the world is fascinating and the human mind is curious. I want them to understand it is so that they will be positioned to make it a better place. Knowledge is not the same as morality, but we need to understand if we are to avoid past mistakes and move in productive directions. And an important part of that understanding is knowing who we are, what we can do. Ultimately, we must synthesize our understanding for ourselves. The performance of understanding that try matters are the ones we carry out as human beings in an imperfect world that we can effect for good or for ill. So it's interesting. There's almost a moral dimension to this. Then what about concepts like compassion, or even kindness? Compassion is a sense of shared suffering, in a way, combined with a desire to alleviate or reduce the suffering, is a special kindness to those who suffer. This is essentially empathy, right? Though with a more active slant that compassionate person will actually seek to help those they feel compassionate for. And kindness, of course, is the quality of being humane, warm-hearted, considerate, forgiving, and sympathetic, to show favor and affection, right? To help and to love. These are, in fact, an understanding of ourselves in relation to others, a form of intelligence, even. So, what about this concept of emotional intelligence? In the 90s, really, Daniel Goleman, another psychologist, started to write about this, and this was an international bestseller for many months, on the bestsellers list. Uh, Emotional intelligence. So all of these, in fact, the last one, the Harvard Business Review's 10 must-reads on emotional intelligence was published in, I believe, 2011. So emotional intelligence, not a new concept, but people start to talk about it. It's linked to what I mentioned earlier, compassion, kindness. And how is it linked to IQ? Now, we'll take this little short journey here. First, Daniel Goleman's definition is emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions, and to recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of others. That's emotional. And there are 5 key components. I'll go through each one of them in a while. So in this concept, can intelligence actually be improved? Well, if you think about it, if it's genetic, the improvement is minimal. Genetic therapy or interventions today only work for rare genetic conditions, not polygenic things like intelligence as we understand it. So there is no intelligence genes. There's probably a large number of genes that contribute to intelligence. And the brain, does it have an intelligence section? Well, it's basically half the brain, the front and the sides, okay? So there is no specific area. But what we can change is the environment. And the environment is one of the factors that will influence intelligence. Now, why does emotional intelligence matter compared to traditional concept of intelligence? Emotional intelligence results in better relationships, improve mental health or mental well-being, has effective leadership components, which are important in societies and communities, and allows for the resolution of conflicts as well as development of teams. Now let's look at the 5 components of emotional intelligence. Self-awareness, recognizing your emotion and the impact. Some of the techniques that people have used to develop this self-awareness is to reflect or to write them down, these reflections. Practice mindfulness or self-awareness and seeking feedback from others, people that they trust, right? And the purposes of a person's heart are deep waters. I give you this quote from Proverbs. But one who has insight will be able to draw out these purposes so that people have meaning and purpose, self-awareness. Second component, self-regulation, managing your emotions constructively, pausing before reacting, developing coping strategies, and reframing negative thoughts, right? So instead of punching someone, maybe learn to regulate how you feel, and then, fist pump, right? Work collaboratively. The third component is motivation, harnessing emotions to pursue goals, being able to set personal goals, celebrate the wins, and maintaining a sense of optimism. In fact, motivation is quite key for children. They usually start with extrinsic motivation, like some rewards that you give them, and then subsequently it develops into intrinsic, that becomes something that's internalized. And parents and teachers can develop this. And then next would be empathy. Empathy is understanding the emotions of others. There's no use having understanding yourself and not being able to understand others. So if you can teach children to see, recognize what others are thinking. Active listening is one technique. It means you don't just listen to the words, you listen to what their body movement, you listen to what they are trying to say that's not really spoken, recognizing these non-verbal cues and being non-judgmental. So for example, this application could be, helping a colleague or even a student by recognizing this, not in what they say, but really in how they act. And finally, social skills, right? Navigating social complexities, have clear communication, conflict resolution, and influencing and inspiring others. This, in fact, here's a tip. We should teach our children and ourselves how to be more assertive. That means stating what we think is important, but not becoming aggressive, as we see in much of the Western world. So how does EQ play around with IQ? Well, EQ, or emotional intelligence, is not measured usually by tests. There are no tests for it, but you can observe the person, see how they interact, get feedback on this person, because they will have an impact on the people around them, right? EQ, or emotional intelligence, predicts leadership and resilience, whereas IQ can only predict academic success. And EQ is developmental, is capable of being learned and developed because it focuses on the environment, whereas IQ is usually genetic in nature, and therefore its improvement is limited. So a few steps on developing EQ, and I will end and let CK take over. Really, a few steps. One, having daily reflection on how we feel, responding to feedback by people that you trust, learning to practice mindfulness and relax, and then role-playing challenging conversations that you may need to have with your colleagues, your students, or your superiors. So basically, intelligence is not just about cognitive and academic skills. It really is about developing compassion and improving overall intelligence of children. And this indeed can be improved. So in a world where you can be anything, be kind is the quote I would give you. And with that, I shall end my sharing.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Dalfang. Really appreciate this. I think I've gone through these slides even before with you at one of the conferences that you did. But to me, every time I read it, it's an eye opener because we are tend to be driven by what the perception of the world demands, right? And the world's perception is academic results in intelligence. It does not speak about individuals as really intelligent people if they're smart enough to engage people, if they are smart enough to understand and stop reacting. And so, for all parents, all teachers, and even students, some of the students have also joined us today. It's something to really understand emotional intelligence and how, at your stage or at your age, you respond to such demands of such exhibitions of those emotional intelligence to counter what you face today. So, as you know, don't judge yourself just being academically performing well. You have a lot of 360 view of as a human. Be kind to each other, of course, and as well as be able to reflect and take feedback. It's always good to improve yourself. So with that, I will move to Dr. Manish first. Okay, Dr. Manish, as an academician, as an educator yourself, you see a lot of people benchmarking school performances basis of the 99 to 100% marks percentage that they score, or A grade and A plus plus. How do you then bring that emotional intelligence or the intelligence in a child, not just reflecting in terms of academics, but bring it out in a way that the child is intelligent and he would have other fears of, he's great, he's in somewhere. How do you handle the expectations from all perspectives of the society? Please go
Thank
ahead.
you. Thank you, Mr. CK. And first of all, I would definitely like to appreciate Mr. Daniel Fang, the way he explained and he set the tone for this webinar. And as you ask me, what we are looking at, we all talk about social intelligence, we talk about social emotional intelligence, we talk about emotional intelligence. But as you said, specifically in most of the part in the world, we still prioritize those 90%, 97%, and 100% marks. So I always think in this way as an academician that we talk about all these concepts, but do we really apply when it comes to the assessments? Yeah. At the time of assessment, everyone want to ask a very tough questions. Everyone want to ask all knowledge-based questions or application-based questions, and it's all higher order thinking. In most of the curriculum around the globe, if you see nowadays, the assessments are designed in such a way that kids don't have a time. Yeah, in a day they are doing two subjects elements. In a day they are doing even three subjects elements. So that time nobody is talking about emotional intelligence, social intelligence, and what we need to look at. And what Mr. Fang said and what you are asking is the population that we are dealing with, generation that we are dealing with, they call themselves Gen Z generations. And I always feel these kids are growing faster, much more faster than the way we are growing. At the same time, their intelligence is also growing. So it's not only one directions they are growing. Nowadays these kids, when you talk to them, they are talking to you, but at the same time they are doing another task. And for us, it was like, oh, Gandhi ji used to shave and write a letter together. That's what we used to say. Yeah. So, but if you see at this time, kids are doing various things at a time. It means their mind is working in a different directions. And when they are working in a different directions, the most important things what we need to look at is their emotional intelligence. Because they are thinking more than us, they are thinking deeper than us, but at the same time, still those minds are very soft. And how we are supporting those mind, that's what we need to discuss when we are discussing emotional intelligence first.
I'm so glad you brought it up, because as an academician, recognizing emotional intelligence is probably not there on the report card, right? I would ideally not want to see an IQ, and I would not want to see percentage, but I would want to see how you rate a person as an individual. That should come out. How his colleagues, or how the student part, people around me are actually reading me is important for me, as a not just my report card and a mark sheets that actually judge you as a test results. And so, as I said, I really hope we can develop some non-testing ways of knowing people better and knowing their emotional intelligence better. But thank you, Dr. Manish. I move to Jagjit. Jagjit, probably everyone on this panel would have not had the what do you call as the experience, first-hand experience of social media, right? Because it never existed on our time, right? We had a different kind of social media. We had a different kind of the pressure of people around us. I would want to understand you and I. We were in the same school at one time, but our experiences are very different. Your way of experiencing this, and then as today, as you reflect onto that life, what do you think is the learning, and that we can share with the team here, people around that, how, and now you're leading that into a corporate world as well as a learning capability for corporates. Could you just elaborate your experience that you went through and you countered, and then you had the emotional intelligence, building that resilience in you to counter that, and how do you see that today as a learning? Go ahead, Jigjeet.
Thank you, Chandrakant. Thank you, Dr. Daniel. Thank you, Dr. Manish. This was really a great start to a discussion, and thank you for re-emphasizing the emotional intelligence importance in today's world, in both academic as well as in the mental health space. Um, so yes, Chandrakant, to your question, the social media was not there when we were growing up in our schools, but the ecosystem, the environment in which we brought up, really created a different level of stress as we really went through our stages of childhood and adolescence. Um, as I look back today at what our kids and my kids are going through and what we went through, though the platforms are different, the platform there is more about a screen and an iPad, in which their world is really limited to, and our world was probably the school, the after school activities, the social circles we went through. But I see a big similarity in terms of how it has influenced us. Of course, today, sitting back 30 years back and seeing those patterns, seeing those things are easy, and when you go through it, it's difficult. But I'm fortunate enough to have experienced the journey, and I'm able to really connect the dots backward and see what really happened. So CK, right? We were in a system where we were in it together in a school, spending 8 to 9 hours, and then post school also spending a lot of time with the same set of friends. As I look back, it has shaped me, and I think Dr. Manish, you spoke about the formative years, the ecosystem, the environment, how it shapes you up and how it solidifies in the next 20, 30 years. But those are the years, the adolescent, the kid to adolescent years, when the ecosystem, the environment, social media now really shapes you up. And I would probably be okay to share a few personal experiences as I look back and I see my journey. Uh, so we were in a school where obviously 40, 50 of us in a class came from different backgrounds, from different social circles, from different uh, economic backgrounds. As I look at the patterns that I have drawn, there has been and there was always a big comparison. As soon as you enter into a classroom, the uniform really tries to bring uniformity, but there are certain things which are not uniform. The way people use the resources that they have, the way people show up, the way people really interact with each other, the way people form small groups of people which are more cohesive and which are more coherent in their type of thinking. So comparison was definitely something which was always there. And over a period of time, I realized that I started to compare myself, saying that, am I really good enough? Am I really as good as somebody else? And let's be very frank about it. The comparison always happens for the worst. You don't compare yourself being grateful, saying that I am probably at the top 5% of the strata, or top 2% of the strata. You compare with somebody saying that, oh, that person comes to school in a car, in a bike. I come in a school bus. This person brings a fancy gadget, or not a gadget at that time, but a school bag or a water bottle, and I don't have that. And those comparisons slowly started to really bring an impression, saying that, am I really good enough? Do I really belong? Am I as privileged as somebody else? And that has probably shaped a big part of me. Of course, there have been other messages. So the problem with emotional intelligence is you only solidify messages which you really want to, and you really validate those messages. So that was a journey for me that started to solidify the message that, am I really good enough? Am I really into the top bracket? Am I really as good as somebody else in academic circle, in the social circle? And as I look back into my journey, it took me probably 30, 40 years. So when I started to get into the deep domain of emotional intelligence and look at why I behave in certain way, why something is happening to me in a certain way, why do I really show up in a certain way? And of course, I was fortunate enough to have help of professionals, of my coach. I understood that feeling of, I'm not good enough, I don't belong, somewhere solidified very strongly in my mind in those years of 14, 15 years that I went to the school, and that social circle or social pressure that was created. And believe me, I continued to suffer for the next probably 30, 20, 30 years. And when I realized that from where it has been coming, uh, then it was probably easy to understand the impact that it has had on me in terms of my relationship, uh, my leadership style, the way I deal with my family. And probably then to get rid of it was an easy journey. But the fact to point a finger saying that this is how the so-called social media has fixated me, has given me the impression of the messages that I have brought to myself, and over the years have validated it for myself. See, that's why I told you that I'm not good enough. See, this is the message I'm getting. This is the marks that I'm guessing. And see, I validate always myself. So it's very difficult to really come out of that mold that has been once created. So I think that's the importance of parents, teachers to probably be very careful about those formative years, about those molding years, as to what is the message that the child, that the adolescent is getting from the environment, what is the pressure that the social media is really putting, how it is molding you, and what could it lead to impact in the next 30, 40, 50 years. So that's my personal experience to all
Really,
people here.
I think what you Jagjit said clearly defines what Dr. Fung was saying in the stage, right? Self-awareness, then self-regulation and motivation, and then empathy is all a part of your journey that you went through, and be able to understand one better and be able to handle oneself better is the key part of emotional intelligence. I know what you're saying is reflective of every one of us, and we now bring that same pressure, on our kids. We're building that same environment, irrespective of social media. I sometimes feel, Dr. Fang, there is no need for social media to create that pressure. The parents themselves do it so much. The teachers, the academic system is already doing that pressure. I believe it's the quotient of elevation happens when you start judging it at a different level with unknown people. What I believe is social media is the biggest bullying agent that you can have, with unknown people actually talking about you without knowing you at all. Whereas known people who know you very, very well should be actually helping you build that emotional intelligence so that you can handle it against people who don't know you, are still being judgmental. And Dr. Fang, I just want few words from you on this one, that how parents and how educators and how the system, which is known people, can help build this resilience stronger in your kid today, that you stop them from going to the edge, so that you can be very easily pushed over. I don't blame social media today, to be honest, in pushing your child to that bridge, because you yourself have driven your children to that edge cliff, and you just needed someone's hand like social media to push you through. So I just need, if my understanding or is the generic understanding correct, or you think it is something else that
Uh,
actually drives it.
Yeah, no, I'm going to give you three R's. I mean, since we're, this is an educational group, three R's for this context is the first thing that you learn as a child is relationships, and it starts with your family relationships, your relationships with your parents, your siblings, and then the wider relationships in school with your schoolmates. You heard that, as Jagjit says, as you grow up, the people around you help you. So having good relationships, meaningful relationships. In fact, we often talk of a risk factor as adverse childhood experiences. The opposite of that is what we call benevolent childhood experiences. And if you list down, you can Google it, benevolent childhood experiences, you will find that it's all about relationships. My teacher, someone that I look up to, my classmate, my peers, my family, obviously, and all of these factors will improve your resilience towards and actually builds your emotional intelligence. Starts with all of this. The second R is what I call reactions. The reactions of the people around you is very important. How parents relate to their children and build their sense of self and self-esteem. How you mollycoddle your child. And the same can be said of teachers, but teachers usually, because you have so many students, unlikely to spoil the child, but parents can. Parents often give in a lot. Now, I mean, not an expert on Indian families, but I know Indian mothers, right? Very good at that, really pampering the child. So that is a risk we need to be careful about, because if you mollycoddle and you take over most of the things, don't allow them to fall down and everything, you actually create a negative impression for them to relate to others. And the spoiled children actually was a syndrome described by pediatricians. Very interesting. Not psychiatrists, pediatricians, where they see a lot of children, they say spoiled child syndrome. And then finally, I use the third R is reproduction. That means children need to have experiences of helping, of compassion, of empathy. And where are the role models? Again, it's the people around them, their family members, their teachers, very important. So experiences of helping the less fortunate when there is a chance to go and do some good works. Children learn. My grandkids are in Malaysia at the moment, and the parents have been sending pictures of them doing some work. And someone was commenting child labor, but actually the work that they were doing was helping, clean up the place. And I think that's good way of reproducing kindness and compassion. So you teach them all these skills. Just now I said those 5 components, very important. Don't forget social skills part, right? The last bit. And all of them come together to build and create a childhood that is that prepares them for the future. That's why it is. I mean, the evidence is quite clear that resilience is linked to emotional intelligence. The question is, how do we create an environment that supports that? And that my 3 R's are for that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Pine. I think I'll remember this for a while. I have, and ensure that this is applied, in a way to transform yourself, transform your own world. I now move to Anil sir. Anil sir, are you in a position to talk now, or still on
Yes,
the aircraft?
yes. I am at a, you are quite familiar with this location, but
Yes.
still I am on the phone only. I'm just switching on
All
my,
right.
but yes, I can be here. Yes,
Oh, brilliant, sir. That's
yeah,
good to see you like this. Okay, so Anil
great.
sir, I have a question where, you as a leading academic and educator yourself, you have thousands of students coming in, and the
Right.
expectations again of the parents is they all become number one, right? Also, you as a leader have to deliver academic results, right? Because your school is a flag host leader to deliver academics. And let's say you say our kids are happy, but they're not scoring 99, so probably people will not get admissions or will get admissions, right? how do you, as a leader, ensure that there's a good balance maintained, where the flow in of student is endless? You have years and years of production. It's like a factory, sometimes people say. So how do you stop a school institution from becoming a factory producing only academic intelligent people, but on the other side, where we all of us said a good human, a good emotionally intelligent person? Please, sir.
Very valid question, CK. First of all, it's nice to see Dr. Fang again, though at a long distance, but it's always good to hear him. And his slides are always as powerful as what I saw in the first place at the first time. And right now, what he mentioned with the 3 Rs are very important and pertinent. Before I answer your question in particular, I would like to, how many minutes do I have with me?
Sir, you have all the minute. You go ahead. You go ahead. Yes,
Okay.
go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead, sir.
So I would like to go to the very basics of what is exactly the genesis and origin of EQ word corresponding to IQ, and probably from where it comes. So each one of us, if we go back and think why we feel the way we feel, if we have to answer this question, it's a very powerful question which one has to answer, and that defines the EQ portion. But if you look at the totality of it, does it only come by a certain source, etc., and all that? The answer which I figured out to myself is something which comes from the learnings which I have from Bhagavad Gita or from the text which is Hindu scriptures and all. And that is, each one of us is a constituent of 8 different elements, out of which we call 5 of them are 5 elements are like earth, fire, sky, etc. वो जो हम बात करते हैं ना पंचतंत्रों की, it's that. And on top of it, there are 3 more. It is man, buddhi, and ahankar. It's how we feel, then the wisdom, and then the ego. So it's like, if we have to think about these 8 in totality, we are all composed of this 8 in some order, in some preference, in some proportion. Some may have fire element more, some may have, I'll say, wisdom more, but we all constitute all this together. So when we talk about children and when we talk about ourselves, in a same scenario, in a same situation, no 2 people behave exactly in the same manner. And the reason for that is what comes from deep down, the source of thought. And the source of thought is the bhav, which comes from the heart. So there is a deep connection of each individual from the head to the heart to the hand, and they are reversible and they are irreversible at the same time. At times, it may be both. At times, it is only one. But most of the time, mind keeps telling that behave like this, while your emotions say, no, it's not. So for people to be like, for example, Dr. Fung will, I'm sure, will agree with me on this. If a surgeon is operating on his own, let's say, son or daughter or on father, he will not be able to perform that duty so well. The only reason is because mind is not able to come out of the fact that he or she is a direct relation to me. So the 3 R's which he is referring to, they are very, very pertinent. So if you look at the idea in totality as a whole to actually shape up children in the context of emotional, I'll say, quotient with respect to the, let's say, social media and all other things. So the stimulus which comes from an audio visual, which is absolutely very, very powerful and dominates your mind immediately, goes straight to the heart. And when it goes to the heart, it is difficult to come out of it. And because these 2 important H are the ones which are actually driving you physically, they are the ones those who are ruling it. So the social media as such has a very wide impact, has to be avoided at an early age, very, very strictly. Because the moment, if it actually gets down to you, it's very difficult to come out of these experiences. I tell you, these experiences are absolutely unique. Only psychologists can tell me the correct answer for this. So Dr. Wang will have a better answer and solution to all what I'm saying. but truly speaking, it relates directly to how one is constituted. And on top of the constituency of each individual, I'll say it's environment. The environment, the way Dr. Fang mentioned, is like if you talk about how you put a child to a different scenario. Supposing a child born in Ranchi is being nurtured at Los Angeles or at Singapore, will the child be same? The answer to the three different, I'll say, situations, whether it is Ranchi, whether it is Los Angeles or at Singapore, same child with same IQ will have a different bearing when he grows up as an adult. And the reason is the environment. So we can only control this environment. Rest of the things, like in the very first slide, Dr. Fang said the IQ is very, very limited to change. Basically, there is hardly any scope for an IQ to improve. But emotional quotient can definitely vary if your environment varies. So we must work on bringing a beautiful environment for these children. And that environment of being happy and yet being told that if this is wrong, then it is to be considered wrong. And if it is right, it has to be, it should stand corrected to be declared as right by way the means, the schools and the organizations. Now, coming down to Arkepuram, when it has more than 7,000 plus children, and handling them in an environment of being happy together is a huge task, I know. But the core philosophy is, if we are happy, we'll learn happy things. If we are not happy, at the end of the day, it boils down to the environment which we create around the children. So if a teacher enters in the classroom with a happy mood and vibrant mood, the children feel happy. The moment that the teacher is sad entering into the classroom, the children are also low in energy and they don't respond that well. So we have to create an environment. And as an institution, we try to create an environment where this quotient of happiness is absolutely high and each one of them learns from their other's experience. It will not always be possible to have all happy situations, but then how to deal with them with a happy mindset is something very important. I'm using a word mindset. So this mindset has to be very, very positive to deal with any of these sad situations as well. Like, for example, I take the example of day before yesterday, this event which took place in Bangalore, where Virat Kohli team won the IPL and we lost about 11 people in that stampede. It's like, it's a very tough situation to deal with, basically. So how emotions erupt at that point of time, they don't actually get governed by the mind. But then finally, mind has to govern them. That we need to really understand. Otherwise, it will not be able to possible to come out of that kind of a framework. Absolutely, so reacting to the way, so it's like it's a tough call, but we keep doing that, and we are habitual of creating a better world and a happy world for our kids. I'll say, where I'll only suggest one thing: we should stay away from this social media for at least a certain age. That age can be a debatable age. I will say at least below 16, it should be definitely banned. No accounts should, etc., should be opened and all, so that an outside influence should not take over the mind of the child.
I think Australian government heard you very well. They have banned it. The first country to do it. And it requires a lot of strength. It's a lot of support from family, friends, education, and everyone to factor in. And sir, I really appreciate, I think what I'm going to kind of go around one by one to all my panelists, but I'm giving this time to our audience to post their questions. I know everyone's questions is unique and I will not be able to answer all of them or take all of the questions, but you please put these questions into the chat and I will be able to pick up one of them or 5 of them to ask to the panelists. But I will like to continue that conversation with Dr. Fang, and then I'll go across. We'll only have 2 to 3 minutes to talk about it. But I want, what would look, we've got the leading educators on our panel right now, as well as the people who are listening to us. Dr. Fang, what would you define for them as one of the initiatives they should take within the school environment or in their environments to improve child's emotional intelligence? What would you be suggesting as 1 or 2 things to do on a day-to-day scenario? Like, I know there could be books to read, blah, blah, all that, but what could be something that is 1 or 2 things they should do that could change a child's life?
Yeah, well, Anil mentioned it, right? To me, games are excellent ways of children learning social emotional skills. So I think playing games is good, but don't play until you get a stampede, obviously. And because you learn to succeed, and very often, more often than not, sometimes you learn to fail, and it's in a safe environment. So making sure that children get a chance to play games, physical games, even non-physical games, board games, in a school setting where you have a lot of interactions, really help a lot. I mean, we didn't talk about mental health here, but in the concept of mental health, there are four components, and they are all relevant. The ability to connect, the ability to cope. That means particularly with failure, but stress of any sorts. And then the ability to learn functional skills. So you learn your literacy, your numeracy, and other skills that you learn in school, including social skills. And then finally, finding meaning and purpose, which I feel that that's underestimated, but schools can and should teach religion. That's just my little bias, because I think when I was in school, we did a lot of religious teaching, and it's just because I go to a faith-based school, but lack of that means that you don't teach values as much, and there is an opportunity to do that. We don't live in a secular world, at least in my mind. We live in a multi-religious world, particularly in Asia, where our religions are very strong, and we should not lose that. Don't become like the West says, oh, we're all secular, because we're not.
Got it. Thank you, Dr. Fung. And I really agree. And there's another question which has come in. I think we did take this up previously. Addiction, one, on device or social media, has been attended to us. We have a webinar before around social addiction and device addiction. You could refer to that, but I will just highlight that there were certain things that I still remember, is to really understand whether the child is addicted or not. Okay, number one, like we said, having awareness. Sometimes every parent, in fact, I have not seen a single parent saying my child is very well managed on devices and controlled. I've seen 99% of the parents who come to us or talk to us say, my child is device addicted. So first, understanding what the addiction means and whether they are able to live without it or not, and then be able to, have certain moments in your day or your time which is device free, some days which is device free, and that drives as a principle to move ahead with that kind of building up that resilience against the device usage and application. I'm just picking one, but there are many ways to protect or prevent your child getting addicted to a device. So leaving that, I'll come back to this topic again. Jagjit, I come to you. Yeah, you raised your hand. Please go ahead.
Yeah, just to answer to that question, I think let's flip it the other way around. I think one of the ways to deal with it is to have conversations. I think as parents, as teachers, having conversations and having deliberate conversations to
Yes.
really connect. So somewhere in this world, I think the difference, CK, from our world and to this world is the connection part of it has gone down significantly. And one of the reasons of the connections to go out is lack of conversations.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
if you're really having transparent and heart-to-heart conversations, then the root cause of why does a kid go to a social media, what is the purpose, what is the need which is not being fulfilled. So those conversations, somewhere I think in the hustle bustle of life, in the running around of
Life
life,
and family,
we
yeah.
have lost it. And I just see an example that while we say that our kids are addicted, our kids are you hooked on to social media, remember the time when the child was 2 years 3 years old and not having food, who gave them a mobile phone and say that look at a cartoon while you eat food. So the child doesn't start. I think the start somewhere happens and then it just picks up. So conversations, heart to heart conversations, purpose, Dr. Daniel spoke about it. What is a purpose, what is a need for which they are going to social media, which can not be fulfilled in a real life. I think once we get a hang of it, we can really break that addiction part of it.
Okay, and Dr. Manisha, I'm coming to you now.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to not start a debate, but I'm going to say that the people have said, how do we ban, social media at this stage? Countries have done it, so it's not impossible. You need to vote for it. You need to have the charge to face your child, go home and say, hey, you can't access it, and then suddenly some of the parents will say, okay, use my account. There are people who will do it and who would allow it still to happen. So we've seen both sides of it. So the journey has to start at somewhere at your own home. right? Corrective measures. And then you can expect the government or someone to take. It's not impossible to do. But there's another question which came up, and I really want to bring that element out and say, do you think it's important for emotional intelligence development? Because social media does drive what we talk about negativity, but there could be a positive impact of social media as well. What's in your view? You think as a social media is a tool banned, not used, by like Anil sir said, or what you have a different perspective? Please share with me.
Thank you. And this question become very relevant in the sense that I basically come from Himalayan region in India. I worked in Africa, in India, in many part of India, and I came to this country in Indonesia before 18 years. I traveled more than 34 countries around the globe. But when I'm in a country in Indonesia where social media users are the maximum in the world, I can't say we can immediately stop using social media or those digital gadgets in the school. But I really appreciate, and I'm learning a lot from Mr. Daniel when he said the value-based education is somewhere missing. In Indonesia, the country where I am as of today, religion is a compulsory subject to teach in the classrooms. And that's why Indonesia is a unique country. And if not religion, if not those things, say particularly to specific religions, but we can say good moral or right values, or in a modern terminology, if we can say mindfulness. And the promotion of mindfulness in school is more important because mindfulness will give an opportunity for students for self-reflections on their activities which they are doing. Because as you said initially, and Mr. CK, that when you started to say, in this generations, we are doing most of the thing to show to other people. What others are doing, no, I have to do the same thing. If you see that ice bucket challenge, everyone is doing the same thing. Okay, the intention might be different. So what is needed at this time, what I feel is, as Mr. Jagjit said, that the conversations, but the conversation is about the online experience and the emotions that is affected or built on with one activities that we look at or one activities that we do using social media. That's also very important. I would say the another important aspects that we have to look at is how we give them ownership to be the digital citizenships.
Absolutely.
I am saying this in the sense that, see, the most important is we are in a country where social media is still used. In my school, kids use mobile. We are thinking to prevent, but it's sometimes it's difficult. But with the digital media citizenship, with the responsible online behavior and teaching around these things will definitely help students to see what is good and what is bad. Yeah.
Got it, sir. I think another thing that comes to my mind, and I go to Anil sir, you're still there, right? There's another thing that goes to my mind that if you're not keeping your child busy, and if you're not keeping your children occupied with enough of activities that can actually, change their livelihood or style of living, if it's outdoor, it's outdoor. Engaging them. We've actually found the excuse in devices who replace us. And then now we're saying you're depending on them more. So, sir, I'm asking this that as a parent, right? You're always asked when you have a parents teacher meeting, right? The parent would come to you and say, "My child is fully addicted. I have no way. He doesn't listen to me." I believe at the time was to listen. You were busy. You were doing something else, and you gave the device. And we avoid answering questions ourselves. Like a lot of time, I've seen the child reaches out to a parent and says, "Do you know what this is?" And the child says, "Just Google it." So we drove them somewhere. And now they're sitting with their teachers and mentors and friends online to talk about it. And now we're saying, "Hey, take this out and remove that." We are ourselves creating that environment for them to be prisoner to somebody else. So what your view on this, and how do you tell parents today not to get into that line at all? Yeah.
CK, very quick word on this. I'll say it's very, what it calls for. Obviously, the action at the end at the parent, because no school is, I'll say, is that ahead, who is using mobiles with all that kind of, I'll say, infrastructure in place and allowing social media also in the classroom. Well, it may be there in some countries and all, but how productive it is and how helpful it is for the child growth, it's all a debatable question. Now, but in order to restrict it, I'll say why we should even restrict it. The core word was responsibility. Somebody used that word, responsible. So the job of the schools is to create responsible citizens. The job of the parents, responsible citizens for this planet. Are we doing that? The answer to that is no. No, clear no, because we are not even conscious about the fact that what my child would be doing 10 years hence, 5 years hence, 20 years hence. So when we are not conscious about it, obviously we will not be able to claim anything at the end of it. So the core question which we need to answer is that, are we creating responsible citizens? This digital media and the social media is one particular area where we are seeing the recklessness of irresponsibility, but it is otherwise also prevailing in the society. So the idea is how to create more responsible citizens individually and collectively. That's how we should actually work. But what I've noticed is we claim so much, we say so much, but we finally do hardly anything about it. So the one thing for social media, I will say only is, it's very, very simple, that we have to look for the child's interest, which is, I'll say, even close to social media or maybe superior. Engage in that particular kind of an activity, and then the child will be out of it. What I've noticed is that since there is nothing very constructive for a child to do, there is nothing very engaging for a child to do, they are bound to do something to waste their time, energy, etc. and all that. Secondly, the nuclear setup of the families which has come up nowadays, that is giving enough reason for a child to be aloof, individual, and take his or her own decisions. And then they may be right, they may be wrong, that's a separate issue. But then at the end of the day, is it wise to leave them for decision making at such young age? That means we are just putting them in a wrong direction. Probably we have to mend our ways in order to
I
bring
think,
that. So
yeah,
as a teacher, what I did, I'm just stopping. You see here, I have stopped all my social media accounts. I'm not on any of the social media platform today.
very difficult for us. I'm proud of you if you're able to do that. I think few of the things that I really take away from this session is one, reflect on yourself, self-awareness. Okay, you should know yourself better, and knowing yourself better is only you'll be able to then manage what is wrong, what is right in you, knowing your perspective. Talk to someone, be self-motivated. If you're looking for outside motivation, it happens, but it's like medication, right? It is outside, it's achieved, only you can go and get somewhere else. But if it is internally, you're able to generate that emotion, your heart is strong enough, make yourself a strong human being, make yourself a much better person, for be a responsible human being. And that's what we should be looking at building our child to become, rather than intelligence in just, hey, I mean, I've never seen parents post in groups saying my child handled a situation very well. All I see is when the quarter results are announced or the annual results are announced, 90.9% score. My son did this, my son did this. But it is all reflective of academic numbers. We quantify it. If we start sharing situation that my child went through a difficult situation, but he came out top of it, not a test. I'm talking about a situation where his interpersonal interaction has changed it. Emotionally, he's come out of something which he countered. And so I generally feel we are driving that pressure internally more than social media. And if we create a good balance, what Dr. Fung said, what everyone in fact said in this, was environment around the child, to build a very, very, impactful environment to change and transform child to become a better human, responsible human. Okay. I know there are many questions which we have not answered, but we'll take note of all the questions and we will respond to them. The time, we've overshot time as usual. And we would want to, have another session of this. So we'll do series two. Okay. We'll do series two. We give you time to think over this. We'll try to put the panel again and bring this entire thing together again. Okay. But I saw a lot of people. There will be a survey sent out. I believe please do respond to it so that we can improve ourselves. That's our reflecting on ourselves, and that's how we get rated, how we can change topics that you want to talk about. We will bring it more. And so I thank you for this panel across different geographies, different location, time zones. Everyone made it to happen. Thank you for Learnex, the team behind Manoj, Varun, Ravi, Manoj Rawat, all of you guys making this happen. So good. Anil sir, thank you for taking the call again on the way. But you really always score number one, as I say, in your classrooms as well. So thank you again, all of you. Dr. Manish, appreciate your time. I know it's late evening, but thank you again. And Dr. Fang, I can't thank you enough. So you're a part of this journey with me. So you thank you again for shouldering this every time and leading it from. So Jagjit, again, thanks for your time. And I look for more sessions with you, all of you. Please put in your questions. Please attend to the feedback forms. Make sure you give your comments so that we can respond to you appropriately. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'll end the session now. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time and your love from the messages that I can see. Thank you again. Rawat, could you